Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever time zone you're in, and thank you for taking the time to watch this video presented by Franchise Central. And you're going to find this very interesting because the topic is Connect Me. Connect me to the right franchises. And we're going to show you how to scientifically and correctly maximize the Connect Me to sell more deals and make more money faster than ever before. To introduce myself, for those of you that don't know me, I have over 40 years in the franchising space. For many years, I spent my career in the corporate world, working with companies and creating franchise systems. Then in 1980, I started my own journey with Franchise Architects. And Franchise Architects is now owned and operated by Franchise Central. And I've been blessed. I've worked on some wonderful projects where we not only created franchise programs, but we also created systems, new business models. And I was fortunate to be a part of the team that worked with Disney on the Disney stores and Apple with the Apple stores and AT&T in creating the business model for cellular, which at the time was a very little-known technology. They didn't know what to do with it. And then in 1997, we launched Franchise Navigator after almost 10 years of research. And then we launched Connect Me, which is what we're going to talk about today, in 2012. I'm also the author of the book, Franchising is Full of BS. No, not that BS. Behavioral Sciences. And we'll share with you exactly what we're talking about. But in 1997, after, again, as I said, almost 10 years of research, we'd all scratch our heads. We being the team at Franchise Architects and the clients, the franchisors, we'd all scratch our heads every time a franchise was sold, awarded, or granted. Because we didn't know whether or not this individual was going to be a good fit or not. And as we all know, when it's a good fit, it's magnificent. It's amazing what happens. The entire distribution system just begins to do the right things and provides the products and services to the end user the right way. But if it's not a good fit, it could turn into the worst monster you've ever seen, because the franchisee is not like an employee where you can just say, have a good day, a good year, and a good forever, and move on to the next person. I wanted to be predictive. I wanted to know whether or not there was a way that we could know in advance if somebody was a good fit or not. Because, boy, it would save the companies a lot of time, energy, and effort by knowing in advance if this person was going to be a good fit. So here's what we've learned. What we've learned is that it's not about you. It's about how well you connect with others, how well you connect with the franchisee, the candidates, the people that you're talking to, and this is where the behavioral sciences come in. And we also know that there's not a lot of ways to learn how to connect with these candidates. And I'm going to show you what we found in our research, and there's really only a couple of choices. One, think about it as an airplane. If you look up into the sky at an airplane, that airplane produces a contrail. Well, there's a lot of personality profiles that are out there. There's DISC, there's Myers-Briggs, there's Performance Index, there's a bazillion of them. But what they're measuring is they're measuring performance. So think of performance as the contrail that comes out of that airplane. Well, that's not how you can determine fit. What we wanted to do was go inside that airplane and know what is it about an individual's DNA that's going to produce that kind of contrail. Because if we go in and we look at the the similarities, the commonalities amongst the DNA characteristics, then we could determine fit. So there's a lot of assessments that are out there, but the Franchise Navigator is not just an assessment. It actually is 14 assessments built into one, but it's an entire behavioral mapping system. It's far more complete. It's far more accurate than anything that's out there. And we've got 20 plus years now to demonstrate that. And our clients have had incredible success stories. But here's the key to what it actually takes to go into that airplane and determine the DNA or determine the commonalities of people. The very first thing that we look at is skills. Now face it, those of you that have been in business before, and now you're in business, you know for sure as a broker, there's only 3 skills to any business. There's the sales and marketing, customer service skills, being there, right there, feet on the street, making things happen, making customers come in, and making sure that your customers are happy. And then there's business administration and HR management skills, the ability to recruit, manage, and motivate teams of people. And then there's technical skills, the application of a particular product or a particular service. Now, one thing you need to know is that very few people on the planet are good at all 3, especially in the franchising space, because those that are good in all 3 don't buy franchises. They're highly entrepreneurial, and they're going to go off and they're going to do their own thing. Values. This is the key to the navigator. Values. Whether we realize it or not, whether we accept it or not, everybody on the planet is all wired differently. But the one thing we all have in common is a value system. And that value system is generally instilled upon us at an early age by either our parents or somebody of major influence to the family. And what happens is it becomes our code of conduct. It becomes the method in which we operate, the how we make decisions the way we do, and why we perform activities the way that we do. And again, whether we believe it or not, whether we accept it or not, anytime a decision has to be made, anytime an activity needs to be performed, whether we believe it or not, we dig deep into our value system. We try to anchor that particular decision or activity with something that we've experienced in the past, positive or negative, and then it comes back out. And when it comes back out, it comes back out in the form of a decision or a value system or activities that's congruent with the value system, which is behavior. All of this happens in nanoseconds. You can't time it. It all happens so fast. So the first thing that we measure is skills, values, and behavior. Because if we know the kind of skill somebody's good at, we know what's important to them, we can actually predict their behavior. We'll know in advance. Now, I'm sure it's happened to you. It's happened to me many times. How many times have you ever scratched your head wondering why somebody just did what they just did or said what they just did? Well, the truth is what they did is perfectly congruent with their value system. Excuse me. It may not be congruent with yours. So it's not about you. It's about them. Now comes Connectme. Connect me to the right franchise. We're going to show you how this works. It's actually very cool. The good news is you don't need to become a behavioral psychologist. We do it for you. It's fully automated, and it's the only true objective matching process that occurs in the franchising space. Match. What's the definition of a match? Well, according to Webster, the definition of a match is when somebody or something resembles somebody or something. So you've got to have two parts. So it's somebody, it's what they are, who they are, how they act, and other people, who they are, what they are, and how they act. So you have to have two parts in order for a match to occur. But more importantly, when you do make that match, it needs to be scientifically valid data. It can't be, well, I think the profile for a particular franchise or is this or is that. It takes research. It takes understanding the entire population of the franchisee within a particular company. So Connectme is the only true objective process for making the match. We've made matches before, and these candidates are incredibly happy. The way we do this is that the Connectme is powered by the Navigator. And as I said, the Franchise Navigator was launched in 1997. We still have clients today that began using it in 1997 that are incredibly happy because it is a predictive model. Well, the Navigator is a quadrant system. And the quadrant system means there's 4 separate profiles that comprise the ingredients that make up the Navigator. And it's comprising the ingredients of an individual's value system. Everybody has all 4. There isn't one that's equally or more important than the other. They all are equally as important. There's the accomplisher. The accomplisher is the drive, the fire in the belly. Now, this is not something that you can learn. This is not something you can go to business school to learn. It's either in you or it's not in you. And we can actually measure between 0 and 100% where a person is in the accomplisher profile. The second is the influencer. The value system of the influencer is they pride themselves on their ability to influence somebody's mind, somebody's decision-making process, somebody's buying patterns. So obviously it becomes a sales and marketing individual, but it's also an individual that's more concerned with self. They're more concerned with themselves than they are with others. Now, the associator is very different. These are the kinds of people that love to be associated with something else. It could be the church. It could be a synagogue. It could be a football team. It could be a baseball team. You know, I spent a lot of years in Chicago, and at Wrigley Field, the Cubs filled the seats every single game. And those people were out there, whether it was 100 degrees or 20 degrees, and they're all dolled up in the Cubs blue, waving the flags, waving the banners, waving the pennants. That's the associator. And then there's the contributor. And the contributor is different than the influencer because the contributor is selfless. Their value system is, what can I do to enrich the lives of the people that I come in contact with? So everybody has all 4 profiles. But what happens is, depending upon the scores, between 0 and 100%, everybody has a dominant and everybody has a subordinate. The dominant is like the lead role in a play. That's what drives that individual. And the subordinates are like the supporting cast in the play. And as I said, they're all equally as important, but there's a lot of profile combinations, dominants, subordinates, so on and so forth. And we've actually created an entire library, an online library of all the profile combinations. So here's how we go about doing this. And we're the only ones in the franchising space that do this. And we've done this now for a lot of companies, many of which you would recognize. And we've done this now for 20 plus years. So the Navigator, think of it, it's not just an assessment. There's plenty of assessments that are out there. And they're singular in purpose. Okay, somebody takes it, fine. The Navigator is an entire behavioral mapping system. And it's the only free choice assessment, meaning you're given a series of questions and 5 multiple choice answers to choose from, ranging from typically least like me, more like me. It's not a forced choice assessment like the others, where you're given a question and you're given 4 choices to choose from. And you have to choose one in order to get on and move on to the next question. DISC, Myers-Briggs, and there are some in the franchising space that are forced choice assessments. They do not allow you to create populations, which means you cannot stack a whole bunch of surveys on top of each other the way that we do and then create norms and start doing data mining. It is impossible. Well, we've done thousands and thousands and thousands of surveys for hundreds of companies in virtually every single sector. And every client is different. Every client has its own unique set of metrics. And you can see these white grid lines right here. What these grid marks represent in a particular franchise is where the high performers score. So we have the maximum and we have the minimum across the 4 profiles of where the high performers score. So for that particular company, all inbound candidates get measured against this high performer profile. It goes on. We're going to discuss what it goes on to in a couple of minutes. So because, and by the way, we have just about every franchisee in a system take the Navigator assessment. You know, at that point, they're not measured against the grid marks because we don't have the metrics. So what we want to do is we want to see what the 4 profile percentages are between 0 and 100%. We then create a scorecard. And on this scorecard, using the client's own internal KPIs, key performance indicators, we have them score the proficiency of the franchisees in those, using those metrics. Now, we don't care how many benchmarks they use. Ace Hardware had 22. Sears is 18. Which had 27. Some companies only have 5. It doesn't really matter. We want to know, using the franchisor's terminology, how they perform in each of those categories. From that, we do a whole statistical analysis and data mining exercise that produces a segmentation model. And that segmentation model shows us where the high performers are and where the mid performers and the poor performers. From there, we guide the franchisors so that they never bring in another candidate that represents the poor performers. It's not that those candidates are bad people. It's just they're not a good fit for that particular franchise. We then create the metrics so that they only bring in people that resemble the high performers. The mid performers, or the people that come out in what we call acceptable, we have to look at and see how close they are to it being inside the grid marks. Because we know through our research that behavior can change a couple of percentage points. It cannot change 4, 5, 6 percentage points, but it can change 2 or 3. Well, based on all of this data mining that we've done, for all of these clients, our statisticians have gone in and we've actually created models for high-performing franchisees in various industry segments, various business models within the industries, and we know what the high performer profile looks like. So we know, for instance, food service limited menu pizza. We know senior care. We know home services, maid services, handyman services. We've done all of the research. We've done all of the data mining, and we have the baseline. So that's how Connectme begins. The first step for Connectme is we've created an online questionnaire. Now, this questionnaire is white labeled to our clients, and it could even be hosted on your website. We don't really care. And what happens, those of you that are techies, the questions are answered on your site it's sent via an API to our system, and then it comes back in the form of reports. So we won't give you the keys to the kingdom, but we'll certainly give you the key to open the door to the kingdom. And so the steps are very simple. The candidate takes the Connectme survey. It only takes 8, 9, 10 minutes to take. It's relatively fast. Those people that have trouble typing their name and whatever it might be, might take a little bit longer. Again, it has your logo on it. It's all white labeled. And we ask them questions. Now, these questions that we ask them can be fully modified. It can be modified to questions that you want. Because the one thing we don't want, we don't want to overlap or duplicate questions that you're already asking. However, there are some questions that you're already asking that could be put into your customized Connectme questionnaire. So here's how it works. It works in 3 parts. The first thing the system does is it creates their profile. And from this profile, we know between 0 and 100% where they score. We also identify geographic preference, where they want to open the franchise. And we also identify liquid capital requirements. How much capital do they have to invest in a franchise? These 3 triggers then cause the Connectme to go into operation. It's all automated. There's nothing for you to do except give out the link to the individual so that they can take your specific Connectme assessment. What happens then is that it takes the individual's profile. It goes into the database and of all of the franchise companies and all of the business models that we've created profiles for. And it automatically creates a match. What it does is it matches people to people. It does not match people to businesses. Because when you get to people to businesses, then you're saying subjectively, I think this particular business is right for you. I've been doing this a long time. I don't dare do that with a candidate. I do take the information, and the team of the people that are already certified in the Navigator and are using the Connectme allow the system to let them know which business model and which specific franchise they match up to. The system then generates 2 distinct emails. It generates an internal email that goes specifically to you. It then creates an external email that goes directly to your client, your candidate. And I'm going to discuss what's contained in the emails. The email that goes to the client, by the way, does not disclose the companies or the business models that they match up to. What happens is that in the first email that comes to you, it says success, a match has been made, and it goes down and identifies which specific franchises and business models match the candidate's profile, capital, and geographic preference. You get that so that you can consult with the candidate. They do not get that. You're the one that disseminates that information to them. What they do receive is they receive an email that contains their own personal source code. Now, the personal source code identifies the dominants and the subordinates in the percentages, and it comes out in the form of a report that we call the personal development chart. They also receive a report that comes directly out of Connectme that goes into depth on their particular profile. It's really very cool. In the personal development chart, and honestly, I have to thank Ace Hardware because they're the ones that came up with this entire idea. Excuse me, they love the Navigator, but they asked if they could go deeper into the DNA of the individual. They wanted to go into categories that would give them the insights as to whether or not a person could execute their business model. So there's 9 categories, ranging from entrepreneurship, leadership, salesmanship, operational efficiencies, people development, time management, delegation, accounting acumen. And by identifying the strengths and the weaknesses in each of these 9 categories, it develops an entire behavioral mapping system that clearly identifies where the strengths and where the weaknesses are of the individual as it fits and as it's measured to a particular franchise. In the Connectme, our statisticians have created a franchise owner profile where we've done intense data mining, and we know the profile of an individual best suited for owning and operating a franchise, single unit, multi-unit, area development. We've nailed it. We've cracked the code. So the way we present this to the candidates is that think of it as your own personal GPS. You know, if you're in a GPS system, you're using it, it's in the car, it's on your smartphone, whatever it might be. The first thing it's going to ask you is, where do you want to go? Well, that's no different than goals and objectives. And the reason why most people do not achieve their goals and their objectives is one of 2 reasons. One, the goals and the objectives are not reachable. They're not realistic. They're not achievable. They're way too abstract. Or 2, if they were realistic, the individual has no starting point. And as you know, for the GPS system, you have to have a starting point and you have to have a destination in order for it to go into work and be effective for you. We market the Navigator to candidates as the starting point of their own personal GPS. And you as a coach, consultant, whatever you call yourself, doesn't really matter to me. It gives you the ability to start providing instant direction and incentive for the individual. We take out the guesswork of which franchises they're right for, but it now gives you the ability to work with them with a starting point. So we have a training and we have a certification program for the Navigator. We've got a lot of people going through it right now. Matter of fact, I think we've got 2 certification calls coming up just the beginning part of next week. We've created an online LMS, learning management system. It's a self-study, self-driven program. You pace yourself. But it's a whole multimedia training and educational process on the behavioral sciences of franchising, how to establish deeper connections and deeper relationships with your franchisees faster. Because see, the best part is you don't have to think about it. All the heavy lifting is done for you. You just need to understand the profiles and the profile combinations in order to maximize Connectme. We have workbooks, we have videos, we have study guides, we have all sorts of tools, aids. This is a representation of the various profile combination reports. You'll have access to every single one of them. It's an online training program, plus we'll provide you with up to 3 hours of training, and you will also be invited to our weekly power group calls. And this is where we, as a community, as the Navigator community, share information. We go through profiles. Some of the brokers, some of the franchisors, people will provide us with survey results and assessments that they need help with or would like a better understanding. And we do it as a group. But that's just the start. Welcome to the Navigator. and connect me to the right franchises. We'd love to work with you. We will not offer you luck or wish you luck. We will offer you success because we know that with the right tools, you will make your own success. Contact us. You can contact me, Craig, at franchisecentral.com. Visit our website, www.franchisenavigator.com. We'd love to work with you. Give us a holler.